I am 8 months pregnant with twins, and I just found out that the man I was supposed to marry has been building a legal case to take my children and raise them with his ex-girlfriend. Let me say that again so it lands properly. My fiancé spent the last 4 months of my pregnancy consulting with a custody attorney, coaching his mother to document my mental state, hiding his ex-girlfriend's visits from me, and lying to my face every single day while I carried his children. And the plan, the actual plan that he eventually admitted to me out loud, was to take my babies and raise them with the woman he was with before me, the woman who cannot have children of her own. I need you to stay with me through all of this, because the beginning seems small and the end will leave you with your mouth open, I promise. Ryan and I met through his cousin, Tracy, almost 3 years ago. Tracy had been my friend for years through work, and she never stopped talking about him. Her cousin was such a good guy, had been through something hard with his ex, was ready to settle down with the right person. I wasn't looking for anything serious. She pushed. I eventually agreed to meet him at a family barbecue. He was everything she said. Attentive, funny, thoughtful in the specific way that feels real rather than performed. His family pulled me in immediately. His mom, Stella, texted me recipes. His dad, Richard, asked my opinions on things like they actually mattered to him. I felt, genuinely and completely, like I had found something I didn't know I was looking for. There was an ex. Her name was Camila. 6 years together, ended because she had health issues that made it impossible for her to have children. The grief of that had consumed their relationship, and they had eventually wanted different things. Ryan said they still talked occasionally because their families were close, but that it was nothing I needed to worry about. I believed him. I had no reason not to. We got engaged. 2 months later, I found out I was pregnant. Ryan cried actual tears when he saw the test. His mother threw us an announcement party. When we found out at the 12-week scan that it was twins, he was practically bouncing. He talked about the nursery constantly. He researched strollers for weeks. I thought I had everything. Then around month 4, something shifted. He started flipping his phone face down when I walked into a room. Work stuff started coming up on weekends more often. His family, who had been so warm and present from the beginning, started going quiet when I walked into conversations. Stella stopped texting as much. Richard stopped quite meeting my eyes. I kept telling myself it was pregnancy hormones making me paranoid. Everyone says you get emotional and overthink everything when you're pregnant. I wanted to believe that. Then one Sunday at his parents' house, I went upstairs to use the bathroom and was coming back down the stairs when I heard Ryan and his father in the kitchen. Richard said something like, "Well, after the babies come, we can move forward with everything." And Ryan said, "Yeah, it's almost time. Camila's been waiting so long and she deserves this." I froze on those stairs. Camila's been waiting so long. After the babies come. What did his ex-girlfriend have to do with anything after the baby came? What had she been waiting for? When I came around the corner, they were both just standing there looking at me with expressions I couldn't read. Richard said immediately, "Oh, hey, sweetie, we were just talking about work stuff." And Ryan jumped in with something about his dad thinking about installing a security camera system. Boring stuff. Don't worry about it. I brought it up that night. I asked Ryan directly what he and his dad were talking about. Why did he mention Camila's name? He looked at me with this specific, calculating expression just for a second, and then he said I must have misheard, that they were talking about a camera, a security camera. He said I'd been mishearing and misremembering things a lot lately, and maybe I should talk to my doctor about it. I want you to understand something about me. I do not mishear conversations. I know exactly what I heard. And the fact that his immediate response was not an explanation, but an attempt to make me question my own perception, that told me everything I needed to know about what was actually happening. I didn't push it. I decided to pay closer attention instead. And the more I paid attention, the worse it got. His sister, Olivia, watching me with this knowing look every time I talked about the nursery or baby names, like she was waiting for something. Tracy, my supposed close friend who had introduced us, suddenly too busy to meet up, responding to my messages with short, distant replies after months of constant contact. And Stella, asking me careful, targeted questions every time I saw her. How was I sleeping? Did I feel overwhelmed thinking about twins? Was I feeling anxious at all? Did I have family support? She knew my parents were both gone. She knew my half-sister and I hadn't spoken in years. She kept bringing that up. The isolation, the lack of support. At the time, I thought she was just being clumsy with her sympathy. I know now she was building a file. Then Ryan left his phone face up on the nightstand one evening, and a notification came through while I was right there. I wasn't going to look, but it was there. The preview showed part of a message. Can't wait for our life to finally start. The contact name was a single letter, C. 3 weeks after that, I drove past his parents' house when he was supposed to be there alone with his dad. There was a third car in the driveway. I recognized it from pictures. It was Camilla's car. She was inside that house while I sat at home 7 months pregnant with his children, believing he was just spending time with his father. He came home that evening and I asked how things went. He said fine, just boring stuff. I asked if anyone else had been there. He said no, just him and his parents. Olivia stopped by briefly. No mention of Camilla. He looked me in the face and lied. But the thing that made my blood actually go cold happened a few days later. Ryan's laptop was open on the kitchen table when I got home from a doctor's appointment. His email was open. At the top of his inbox was a thread from a family law firm. The subject line read, "Re-custody consultation, next steps." The email was from an attorney thanking him for the consultation and outlining initial thoughts about his situation. It mentioned establishing primary custody. It mentioned documenting concerning behaviors. It mentioned mental health concerns. There was an attachment I couldn't open before I heard his car pull into the driveway and had to close everything and pretend I'd just walked in. I went to the bathroom and stood there staring at myself in the mirror. He was building a case against me. While I was pregnant with his children, while his mother was asking me careful questions about whether I felt overwhelmed, while he was calling me paranoid for noticing that something was wrong, he had been meeting with a custody lawyer to figure out how to take my babies. I found a family law attorney and had a phone consultation from a grocery store parking lot, because that was my life now. She confirmed what I already knew. Before the babies were born, I had all the rights. Once they arrived, everything would change. She said I needed to start documenting everything myself. Dates, times, conversations, witnesses. She said I needed to think about whether there was anywhere safe I could go. I thought about that last part for a long time because the answer was almost nowhere. A few weeks later, Stella invited us to dinner. I didn't want to go, but something told me I might learn something. When we got there, the energy in the room was wrong from the moment I walked in. Everyone was making careful, small talk, and Stella kept watching me like she was assessing something. About 20 minutes in, she started in with the questions again. How was I sleeping? Did I feel anxious? Did I ever feel overwhelmed thinking about having twins? Was I getting enough rest? I put down what I was holding and looked at her and said, "What exactly are you trying to ask me? Because it feels like you're fishing for something specific." Ryan immediately put his hand on my arm and said, "I was being a little paranoid, don't you think?" Paranoid. He said that word in front of his entire family while I was sitting there 8 months pregnant. I shook his hand off. I said, I wasn't being paranoid. I was asking a direct question, and no one in this room seemed to want to give me a direct answer.
And then Olivia, who had barely spoken all evening, looked up from her phone and said, "Maybe we should just tell her. This is getting ridiculous." Ryan's head snapped toward her. He told her not to. Richard said, "Let's all calm down. This isn't how we wanted this conversation to go." I said, "So there is a conversation you've all been planning to have with me." Ryan tried to steer me toward the door, said I was getting upset and that wasn't good for the babies. I pulled my arm away. I said, "I'm not going anywhere until someone tells me why Camila was at this house last week when you told me you were alone with your dad, and why you have emails from a custody lawyer on your laptop." Ryan's face changed. I could see him processing that I knew more than he thought I did. He opened his mouth and closed it. Stella started talking about misunderstandings, but I kept my eyes on Ryan and asked him to explain all of it. No more lies. He took a breath and said, "Okay, fine." He admitted Camila had been coming around, admitted his family knew, claimed he had been talking to her because he was worried about me, and she knew him and had been helping him figure out what to do. Made it sound like my concern about his behavior was the problem, made it sound like the thing requiring management was me. I asked him to show me his phone, show me the conversations with Camila if they were as innocent as he claimed. He said he wasn't going to let me go through his phone like a jealous teenager. I looked at him standing there refusing to show me, and I knew with absolute certainty that whatever was on that phone was worse than anything he had admitted to. I left, sat in my car shaking for 10 minutes before I could drive, went home, started sleeping in the guest room. But I wasn't done. A few days later, I sat down across from him on a Saturday and told him we were doing this now, not later, right now. These babies were coming in weeks, and before they arrived, I needed to know exactly what he had been planning. He tried the same script. Camila was just a friend. His family was just concerned. I was being paranoid. I told him I knew he was lying, that I had known for weeks, that his explanation for the text about their life finally starting made no sense, that the email about documenting my concerning behaviors spoke for itself, that either he told me the truth right now or I was walking out the door and explaining everything to a judge. He went quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Fine, you want the truth?" Yes. He had been talking to Camila about more than friendly support. Yes, his family knew. Yes, there had been a plan. My entire body went cold, but I sat perfectly still and let him keep talking. He said when I first got pregnant, he panicked. He wasn't sure he was ready. He and Camila had stayed in contact after they broke up, and when he told her about the pregnancy, she was devastated. They started talking more about what he actually wanted, about whether he was making a mistake. I asked him what kind of mistake. He said the mistake of building a life with the wrong person when the right person had been there all along. I looked at the man I had agreed to marry, the man who had cried when he saw that positive test, who had talked about nursery colors and stroller brands for months, and I sat with what he had just said to my face while I was carrying his children. He kept going. He said Camila had always wanted children and it had destroyed her when she found out she couldn't have them, and now here he was about to have twins with someone he wasn't even sure he wanted to be with long term. He said maybe I would be happier without the pressure, that he and Camila could give the children a stable home with two parents who actually wanted to be together. I asked him if he honestly believed I was going to hand over my babies because it was more convenient for him and his ex-girlfriend. He said he didn't know. That was why they had been talking to lawyers. I asked about the questions from his mother, the mental health documentation, the comments about me being confused and paranoid. He admitted the lawyer had suggested documenting concerning behaviors, that if he wanted primary custody, he would need evidence that I wasn't stable enough to be the primary caregiver. He said his mother was just trying to help gather information. So all of it had been deliberate. Every question Stella asked about my sleep and my anxiety and my family support, every time Ryan called me paranoid, every conversation that went quiet when I walked into the room, all of it was ammunition being collected by people I had trusted completely. I asked how long. How long had he been doing this while playing the excited father-to-be for me every single day? He said it started around month 4 when Camilla told him he still loved him. He said everything before that had been real. He said Camilla made him realize he had been settling. That was the word he used, settling. I was the person he had settled for because his first choice couldn't give him what he wanted, and now his first choice could get what she wanted through me. I stood up. I told him I was done, that I was leaving and taking everything that belonged to me, and my lawyer would handle the rest, that he could tell his family and Camilla that their plan was over because I was not giving anyone my children. He said I was being emotional, said we still needed to figure out co-parenting, said he still wanted to be part of the baby's lives. I told him he should have thought about that before he spent 4 months trying to build a case to take them. Then I packed a bag and left. I stayed with a coworker. She had a spare room and she offered it without hesitation when I told her what had happened. My lawyer said I was in a strong position. Ryan had admitted directly to building a case against me by manufacturing the appearance of instability. I didn't record the conversation, but I wrote down every word he said immediately after with full details. The babies were born 3 weeks ago, a boy and a girl. They came a little early, but they are both healthy and they are both perfect, and I have not stopped staring at them since they arrived. Ryan tried to come to the hospital. I had already spoken to the nursing staff. He was not permitted in my room. He sat in the waiting area for 6 hours before security asked him to leave. We have a custody hearing scheduled for next month. My lawyer is confident. Ryan's admission about what he and his family planned is going to be very difficult for him to explain to a judge. He texts me constantly. He made a mistake. He wants to work things out. He never meant for any of this to happen. I have not responded to a single one. And my sister, Rita, we hadn't spoken for 2 years. She found my posts through someone she knew after everything started getting shared around. She showed up at my door with diapers and formula and 2 years' worth of things we should have said to each other. We talked for hours about our mom, about our dad, about all the small, stupid reasons that had grown into years of silence. She is coming back next weekend to help with the babies. To everyone who followed this and sent messages and told me I wasn't crazy when I needed to hear it most, thank you. You were the only people I had for a long time, and I will not forget that. Now, I have 2 newborns to feed, and I have not slept more than 3 hours at a stretch in weeks, and I have never in my life been this exhausted or this happy. We made it.